Good morning, students. Today we will take chemistry in everyday life, that is unit 16, and this is part 2 of this chapter. First topic, therapeutic action of different classes of drugs. What do you mean by therapeutic action? It means healing of diseases by the use of drugs. Now, we have different classes of drugs based upon the therapeutic action. First, antacids, antihistamines, neurologically active drugs. Under neurologically active drugs, we have two types, tranquilizers and analgesics. Analgesics are again of two types, non narcotic analgesics and narcotic analgesics. Then the next type we have antimicrobials. Under antimicrobials, we would be taking antibiotics, antiseptics, and disinfectants. And the last class of drugs is anti-fertility drugs. Now we move on to the revision of the classification of drugs based upon therapeutic action. Again, we take up the summary of the whole thing. Antimicrobials are there, under which we will study antibiotics, antiseptics, and disinfectants. We have neurologically active drugs, under which we will study tranquilizers and analgesics. Analgesics we will study under two headings, narcotic analgesics and non-narcotic analgesics. Then we have antacids, antihistamines, and anti-fertility drugs. First, we move on to antacids. And students, you have to remember that in board examination, usually from this part, we have definitions asked along with the examples. So you have to memorize the definitions as well as the examples. So antacids. These are substances which neutralize the excess acid and raise the pH to an appropriate level inside the stomach. So you have to remember that in our stomach, whenever excess acid is there, it is neutralized by the drugs which are called as antacids. Now, whenever there is overproduction of acid in our stomach, it causes irritation and pain. And in severe cases, it will cause ulcers in stomach. So you can see here the stomach ulcer, and the cure is we can get relief from acidity by taking antacids. Now, the commonly used antacids are sodium hydrogen carbonate or a mixture of metal hydroxides such as aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxides. And you can see here Gelusil is one of the common antacid used. You can see here it is written antacid or anti-gas liquid. It is written antacid anti-gas liquid. And you can see the sticker on this Gelusil bottle shows us magnesium hydroxide, dried aluminum hydroxide, magnesium aluminum silicate hydrate. So these are all components of an antacid. And what they do, they try to neutralize the acidity present in excess of acid present in our stomach and brings the pH to a normal level. Now, there are few points which you have to take note of. First, you have to remember that metal hydroxides are preferred in comparison to the hydrogen carbonate as antacids. Reason: if you take excess of hydrogen carbonate, the stomach becomes alkaline and it will trigger the production of even more acid. So that will be harmful for the body. But we can prefer metal hydroxide in comparison to hydrogen carbonates because being insoluble, they do not increase the pH above neutrality. And you have to remember that antacids can control only symptom, not the cause. A very important point you have to remember. Whenever we take antacids, it can control only the symptoms, but it will not control the cause. And you have to remember, whenever ulcers are becoming life threatening in the advanced stages, the only treatment is removal of the affected part of the stomach by surgery. Now, next we move on to a very important reasoning question. But before that reasoning question, we have to remember one thing, that there is a substance which is known as histamine. This histamine is actually the cause of all the allergies or inflammation in our body. Histamine causes allergy and inflammation, but it can also stimulate secretion of pepsin and hydrochloric acid in our stomach. Now, if histamine is responsible for production of acid, can we use an antihistamine to prevent that secretion of acid and neutralize the acid? The answer is no, because anti-allergic and antacid drugs work on different receptors. This is a reasoning question here, that antihistamines do not affect the secretion of acid in stomach because anti-allergic and antacid drugs work on different receptors. Next, few examples of antacids are cimetidine, which is also known as Tagamet. Then we have ranitidine, which is known as Zantac. These are the common antacids which can be used to neutralize the excess acid. Few more antacids are there, omeprazole and lansoprazole. And now when you remember these names for your exams, there will be many names associated with each class of drugs. So you can remember a code word by which you can uh, write the names of all the antacids. Here for remembering antacids, we have a short trick to remember. Now you know that at LOC, the army people are there. At LOC we have the army people, and they have a slogan, Zinda Rahe To Milenge, ZRT, and LOC you remember. Z for Zantac, R for ranitidine, T for Tagamet, L for lansoprazole, O for omeprazole, C for cimetidine. This way you can remember all the names of antacids. Now, next class of drugs, it is antihistamines. Anti means against, and histamines, you know, histamines are the substances which cause allergy and inflammation in our body. They are actually the culprits which cause allergy or inflammation in our body. So, antihistamine drugs will act against histamines. These drugs diminish the action of histamine, and so they are called as antihistamines or anti-allergic drugs. We should know a few points about histamine. Like, histamine is a powerful vasodilator. What do you mean by vasodilator? Vasodilator means it promotes dilation of blood vessels. Then it contracts the smooth muscles in the bronchi and the gut and relaxes other muscles such as those in the walls of fine blood vessels. Histamine is also responsible for nasal congestion associated with common cold and allergic response. So you remember, the culprit for any kind of cold, allergy, nasal congestion is the substance histamines, and the medicine we take for preventing it is antihistamine. And you have to remember that the antihistamine drugs interfere with the natural action of histamine by competing. It will compete with the histamine for the binding sites of the receptor where histamine exerts its effect. So, this is how the drug works. Examples of antihistamines we have here: brompheniramine, Demetap, Demetane. These are all the alternative words. Terfenadine, Seldane, etc. These are all antihistamines. And again, you have to take note of that reason that antihistamines do not affect the secretion of acid in the stomach, because anti-allergic and antacid drugs work on different receptors. There's again a trick to remember the antihistamines. How to remember? You remember the word STD booth. S Seldane, T for terfenadine, D for Demetap, and B for brompheniramine. Third class of drugs, we have neurologically active drugs. Under neurologically active drugs, we have two class of drugs: tranquilizers and analgesics. Analgesics, we will again divide it into two: non-narcotic analgesics and narcotic analgesics. Tranquilizers. Definition of tranquilizers: these are drugs used for treatment of stress, fatigue, mild and severe mental diseases. All these are treated by using tranquilizers. Stress, fatigue, and severe and mild mental diseases are treated by using tranquilizers. Tranquilizers form essential component of sleeping pills. You might have heard about sleeping pills. So the essential component of any sleeping pill is tranquilizer. Now, before we move into the examples of tranquilizers, you need to know a small thing about depression and antidepressant drugs. See, many people suffer from depression. Now you have to know that those people who suffer from depression, they have a low level of a substance which is known as noradrenaline. So any person who suffers from depression, their noradrenaline level will be low. In such a case, we will use a tranquilizer. Now, if you are giving the tranquilizer to a person, what happens? That particular tranquilizer will inhibit the enzyme which catalyzes the degradation of noradrenaline. What will the tranquilizer do? It will inhibit that particular enzyme which catalyzes the degradation of noradrenaline. And suppose that tranquilizer is successful in inhibiting the enzyme, then what happens? The metabolism of noradrenaline becomes slow and it can activate its receptor for longer periods of time. So what will happen? Metabolism of noradrenaline will be slowing down and it can activate its receptor for longer periods of time, and thus it will counteract the effect of depression. This is how antidepressant drugs work. We have few more examples of tranquilizers. We have iprionazide, chlordiazepoxide, meprobamate, Equanil. All these are tranquilizers. I am repeating the names again. Iprionazide, chlordiazepoxide, meprobamate, Equanil. All these are tranquilizers. We move on to another class of tranquilizers drugs. They are derivatives of barbiturate acid, and you see all the names end with AL. We have veronal, amital, nembutal, luminal, seconal. All these constitute important class of tranquilizers. These derivatives are called barbiturates, and barbiturates are hypnotic, that is, they are the sleep producing agents. You can see here veronal, amital, nembutal, seconal. We have seconal, nembutal, amital, veronal. These are sleep producing or hypnotic in nature. Barbiturates are hypnotic or sleep producing in nature. Some other substances which are used as tranquilizers are Valium, serotonin, etc. Now, how to remember the names of all these tranquilizers? You can remember the term PCM, Vale students, Van say I. PCM, Vale students, Van say I. So you have phenelazine, chlordiazepopxide, meprobamate, veronal, luminal, serotonin, Valium, amital, nembutal, seconal, equanil, and iprionazide. All these are tranquilizers, and the trick is here, you can remember that. Now we move on to the next type of drugs, which are analgesics. Now what are analgesics? They reduce pain without causing impairment of consciousness or mental confusion and or paralysis or disorder of nervous system. They will not cause all these things. They will not cause loss of lack of consciousness. They will not cause mental confusion or paralysis or disorder of nervous system. But they will affect the body in such a way that they can reduce the pain. So they are the pain reducing drugs. And if you remember, we'll go back to tranquilizers. These are used for treatment of stress, fatigue, mild and severe mental diseases. And when we see analgesics, they reduce pain. They are the medicines taken to reduce pain. Types of analgesics. We have two types of analgesics. I have already told you there are two types of analgesics, non-narcotic or non-addictive analgesics. They are not habit forming or they are not addictive in nature. Example, aspirin, paracetamol. And narcotic analgesics, you have those which are addictive in nature. For example, morphine, heroin and codeine. And here you have the example aspirin, paracetamol, etc. Now under analgesics, we have another class of drugs. Whenever you have fever, you take aspirin or paracetamol. Actually, they are antipyretic drugs which help in reducing the fever. So, antipyretics are drugs which help in reducing the fever. And example, we have aspirin, paracetamol, etc. So, you have to define, you should remember the definition of antipyretics, analgesics, tranquilizers, all the definitions and all the examples also. Now we move on to a comparative account of narcotic and non-narcotic analgesics. Now under non-narcotic analgesics, we have a point to remember that these analgesics are used to control pain and inflammation. But remember, when constantly used, they can cause addiction. Aspirin and paracetamol belong to this class of non-narcotic analgesics. Here, narcotic analgesics are administered in small doses to relieve pain and produce sleep. Narcotic analgesics can produce sleep and they can relieve pain when administered in small doses. Under this category, we have the example morphine and many of its homologues. And you have to remember, in medicinal doses, when we take morphine in medicinal doses, it can relieve pain and produce sleep. But you remember, when it is taken in poisonous doses, it will cause harm to the body. So there are two terms. Here it is poisonous doses, here it is medicinal doses. When it is taken in medicinal doses, it will relieve pain and produce sleep. And again, we are coming to the narcotic analgesics. Poisonous doses of morphine can cause unconsciousness, coma, convulsions, and even death. And in non-narcotic analgesics, you have to remember aspirin inhibits the synthesis of chemicals known as prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are again the culprits. What they do? They stimulate inflammation in tissue and cause pain. And what does aspirin do? It will inhibit the synthesis of the substance prostaglandins and thus cause relief from pain. And here you can see the aspirin and here you can see the morphine. We move on to the next page. Here you have to remember, non-narcotic drugs are effective in relieving skeletal pain such as due to arthritis. And they also help in reducing fever and act as antipyretic. And they also prevent platelet coagulation. What is platelet? Platelets are tiny blood cells that help to stop bleeding by formation of clot. So, these drugs can reduce fever and they can even prevent platelet coagulation. You might have often heard that during heart attacks, aspirin is given. Why? Because aspirin has anti-blood clotting action. So, it can prevent heart attack. In narcotic analgesics, we have morphine as a narcotic. Now, morphine narcotics are known as opiates. Why they are called as opiates? Because morphine is obtained from the opium poppy. Now, here you can see the poppy plant and the pod of the opium plant, the poppy plant. You can see here the latex is there. On the pod of the poppy plant, you can see the latex. The dried latex obtained from immature seed pods of poppy plant is used to make morphine. And these analgesics are used for relief of post-operative pain, cardiac pain, pains in terminal cancer and in childbirth. When there is unbearable pain, morphine is administered. Terminal cancer means when the patient is on the deathbed, means there is no chance of surviving. Then in that case, to get relief from pain or to subside the pain, morphine is given. Next class of drugs, antimicrobials. Word itself is self-explanatory. These drugs are used to cure diseases caused by microbes or microorganisms. And if it is acting against bacteria, we will call it as antibacterial. Against fungi, it will be called as antifungal agents, antiviral agents, parasites like antiparasitic drugs, etc. Now, under antimicrobials, three main things we are going to study. Three main subheadings are there: antibiotics, antiseptics, and disinfectants. All these will come under antimicrobial drugs. Now here you can see antiseptic, the Dettol liquid; disinfectant, the phenyl; and antibiotic, the tablets. All these three things we will see. First, antibiotics. Now, antibiotics definition. These are chemical substances which in low concentration either kill or inhibit the growth of microorganisms by interfering with their metabolic process. So, what these drugs do, antibiotics can kill or even inhibit the growth of microorganism when given in low concentrations. And you know, the first antibiotic, penicillin, was discovered by Alexander Fleming. Antibiotics are used as drugs to treat infections because of their low toxicity for humans and animals. They are having low toxicity for humans and animals. Now, initially, antibiotics were classified as chemical substances produced by microorganisms like bacteria, fungus, etc., that can inhibit growth or even destroy microorganisms. But what happened? Development of synthetic methods help in synthesizing of compounds that were originally discovered as products of microorganisms. Some of the purely synthetic compounds had antibacterial activity. So, the definition of antibiotic has been modified. Now, the modified definition of antibiotic. Antibiotic is a substance produced wholly or partly by chemical synthesis which in low concentration inhibits the growth or destroys microorganisms by intervening in their metabolic processes. So, this is a modified definition of antibiotic. You can either write this or this. Now, we have the next point to be taken up. Paul Ehrlich, a German bacteriologist, investigated arsenic based structures in order to produce less toxic substances for treatment. Now, what happens when Paul was investigating? He tried to find out some arsenic based compounds which has less toxic effect on the host and more toxicity towards the microorganism, and he found treatment of a disease, syphilis, which is a chronic bacterial disease, and he developed a medicine which is known as salvarsan or arfenamide. He was awarded Nobel Prize for Medicine for the discovery of this drug. And salvarsan, he found that salvarsan is toxic to human beings, but its effect on the bacteria was much greater than on human beings. So it was this investigation was the starting to know that how drugs can be more toxic to the microorganisms as compared to the human beings. Ehrlich also noted similarity in structures of salvarsan and azodis. Salvarsan contains arsenic double bond arsenic. Azodis contain nitrogen double bond nitrogen. Azo stands for N double bond N. And he tried to prepare drugs which were having structure similar to salvarsan, where arsenic double bond arsenic was there, and he tried to find out whether he can prepare drugs which contain the N double bond N linkage, and he was successful. He prepared a drug which is Prontosil, which is the first effective antibacterial agent. Prontosil had N double bond N and resembles the structure of salvarsan. And you have to remember one more thing. Prontosil was converted into a compound which is known as sulfanilamide, which is the real active compound in Prontosil. And this started with the discovery of sulfur drugs. Means here the sulfur drugs were discovered. And one of the most effective one is sulfapyridine. And you can see here we have Prontosil, which is broken down in the body to release sulfanilamide, and this is an active antibacterial agent. Now, you might have heard about penicillin. The real revolution in antibacterial therapy began with the discovery of penicillin, where Alexander Fleming uh, prepared. He took 13 years, and with clinical trials, he isolated and purified the active compound to accumulate the sufficient material to get penicillin. And here you can see on the decayed vegetation the penicillium fungus. The fungus is growing there and the penicillin is extracted from the fungus. And it took 13 years for the clinical trials of this medicine. Now we have types of antibiotics. There are two types of antibiotics. The difference between bactericidal and bacteriostatic should be very clear to you. Cidal means killing. So, penicillin, streptomycin, ofloxacin, all these can kill the microbe. They have cidal or killing effect on microbes. They are called as bactericidal. And erythromycin, tetracycline, chloramfenicol, all these have static or inhibitory effect on microbes. So they are called as bacteriostatic antibiotics. So two types of antibiotics are there: bactericidal, bacteriostatic. Trick to remember: you can remember soap, streptomycin, ofloxacin, aminoglycosides, and penicillin. Here you have etc. Erythromycin, tetracycline, chloramfenicol. This way you can remember. Next we come to spectrum. What is meant by spectrum? Full range of bacteria or other microorganisms that are attacked by certain antibiotic is called a spectrum. When you take the full range of bacteria, and or in other words you can say that if an antibiotic is acting on a range of microorganisms, that whole thing is considered as a spectrum. We have three types of antibiotics based upon that. First is broad spectrum antibiotics, narrow spectrum antibiotics, and last is limited spectrum antibiotics. Broad spectrum antibiotics. These antibiotics kill or inhibit a wide range of gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. These antibiotics can kill or inhibit a wide range. You have a wide range of gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Example, you have chloramfenicol, tetracycline, vancomycin, ofloxacin, amoxicillin, ampicillin. And you have to remember, amoxicillin and ampicillin are the synthetic modification of penicillin. Remember, whenever you are asked, name the two synthetic modifications of penicillin, it is amoxicillin and ampicillin. And trick to remember is, you can remember Ottawa, which is in Canada. Ottawa C, okay. C for chloramfenicol, O for ofloxacin, T for tetracycline, A ampicillin, V vancomycin, and A ampicillin. Narrow spectrum antibiotics. These antibiotics are effective mainly against gram positive, or we have a word, or gram negative bacteria. Either gram positive or gram negative bacteria. Example is penicillin. Then we have limited spectrum antibiotics. These antibiotics are effective only against a single organism or disease. Now here we have two drugs, streptomycin and dicid-azarin. You can remember the word defense services to remember that, DS. So there are three types of antibiotics: broad spectrum, which can inhibit or kill a wide range of gram positive or gram negative bacteria. Narrow spectrum is effective against gram positive or gram negative bacteria. And limited spectrum antibiotics are effective only against a single organism or a disease. So this is very important. Definitions are very important. Names are also very important. Now, what is gram positive and gram negative bacteria? For that, here we have a short explanation. Gram stain is there. So some bacteria get stained purple with gram stain. So they become the gram positive bacteria. And bacteria which take up the dye and take up the stain and become red in color, they are called as the gram negative bacteria. So this is a short information about gram positive and gram negative bacteria. So you can see here, this is the gram positive becoming purple in color. This is the gram negative becoming red in color. Here you have again the examples of broad spectrum antibiotics, tetracycline, ampicillin, ofloxacin. Narrow spectrum you have penicillin, streptomycin for limited spectrum antibiotics, chloramfenicol also limited spectrum antibiotics. Now, one of the important thing you have to note here is that Hindustan Antibiotics in Pimpri, which is located in Pune, is the manufacturer of antibiotics in India, the main manufacturing unit for antibiotics. And chloramfenicol is readily absorbed in our gastrointestinal tract, and it is used in the treatment of typhoid, dysentery, acute fever, certain form of urinary infection, meningitis, pneumonia, etc. And as I told you, dicid is used against cancer cells. Now we move on to the next class of drug, the therapeutic action of drugs. We'll move on to the next class, that is antiseptics and disinfectants. Now you have to remember both antiseptics and disinfectants are substances which prevent the growth of microorganisms or may even kill them. But you have to remember that disinfectants are chemical substances which kills microorganisms but are not safe to be applied on living tissue. They are not safe to be applied on living tissues. Here you have soframycin and here you have the phenyl. Antiseptics are applied to the living tissues such as wounds, cuts, ulcers, diseased skin, etc. For example, you have furacin, soframycin, etc. These are antiseptics and you know they are applied to the living tissues. Another thing you have to remember that antiseptics are not ingested. You cannot eat it. Like antibiotics. Antibiotics we can take inside, it can be ingested, but antiseptics cannot be. Another important thing you have to keep in your mind, Dettol. Dettol is a mixture of chloroxylenol and terpineol. Similarly, very important point you have to remember, bithionol is added to soaps to impart antiseptic properties. Questions may be asked that which is the compound which is added to soaps to impart antiseptic property, and the answer will be bithionol. And what are the two components of Dettol? It is chloroxylenol and terpineol. Now, you might have heard about tincture of iodine which is acting as an antiseptic. Tincture of iodine is 2 to 3% solution of iodine. It is a 2 to 3% solution of iodine in alcohol water mixture. And another antiseptic is iodoform, which is acting as an antiseptic for wounds. And you might have heard about boric acid solution, which is acting as an antiseptic for eyes. And here you can see the boric acid solution for which is acting as an antiseptic for eyes. You have tincture of iodine which is applied on wounds, iodoform which is acting as an antiseptic. Now you have to remember that disinfectants are applied only to inanimate objects, means it cannot be applied on living objects, and inanimate objects such as floors, drainage system, instruments, etc. Now there is a question, name a substance which can act as an antiseptic as well as a disinfectant by varying the concentration. This is a question, and the answer is 0.2% solution of phenol is an antiseptic. 0.2% solution of phenol is an antiseptic, and in form of antiseptic it can disinfect skin and relieve itching. And if you take its 1% solution, it will act as a disinfectant and you can clean the floors and toilets using this disinfectant. So phenol is a substance which can act both as an antiseptic as well as a disinfectant. Few more examples of disinfectant are chlorine in the concentration of 0.2 to 0.4 ppm in aqueous solution, and sulfur dioxide in very low concentration are disinfectants. These are another examples other than phenol, and we have chlorine as well as sulfur dioxide. Differences between antiseptics and disinfectant. They are used to kill or prevent growth of microorganisms. These are also used to kill the growth of microorganisms but are not safe to be applied on living tissues. These are non-toxic to living tissues. These are harmful for the living tissues. They are used for dressing wounds, ulcers, etc. They are used to disinfect floors, trains, toilets, etc. The last topic of this slide, we have anti-fertility drugs. What do we mean by anti-fertility drugs? They are actually called as contraceptives, and these are chemical substances used to control birth. And the birth control pills is actually a mixture of synthetic estrogen and progesterone derivatives. And you know, estrogen and progesterone both are hormones. You know, progesterone suppresses ovulation and estrogen controls the menstrual cycle, and thus they control the birth, the rate of the birth. Synthetic progesterone derivatives are more powerful than progesterone. They are more potent or powerful than progesterone. An example of synthetic progesterone is norethindrone. Norethindrone is an example of synthetic progesterone. The estrogen derivatives which is used in combination with progesterone derivative is when you combine the estrogen with progesterone, the derivative is novestrol, or it is also known as ethinyl estradiol or novestrol. So here we wind up with anti-fertility drugs. These are the drugs which control the birth. They are also called as contraceptives. They contain estrogen and progesterone derivatives. Okay, and novestrol is a drug which is a combination of estrogen derivative and progesterone derivative. And synthetic progesterone example is norethindrone.